Online dating is getting more and more popular every single year. In fact, many studies have shown that couples are now meeting more online than any other source. That's why today I am joined with Coach Felipe and of course myself, where we have helped hundreds of guys optimize their dating profiles. In fact, Felipe is a dating app photographer, and we both work with our clients in our Digital Romeo coaching program. And so today we're gonna tell you exactly what we have found based on successful dating profiles. So this one's gonna be a long one. I need you to grab your notebook, jot down some notes, because we're gonna dive deep. So Felipe, we got a lot to cover here. I think first we have to let them understand what does successful even mean? Like, what is a successful dating profile? Because sometimes it seems subjective. Like, is it successful if I'm getting 10 matches a week, 50 matches a week, going out on 5 dates a week, 2 dates per week? So I think we need to get some clarity on that. And based on what we found, we've noticed first off that successful is really based on data. So you're comparing yourself to the mass majority of men on dating apps, which 75% of men are on dating apps compared to
25% of women.
25% of women, right? Which is insane. And most of those guys are subpar, average, or not even doing anything great whatsoever. So we personally have found that successful is around a 4 to 10% match to date ratio. So this means the amount of matches that you're actually getting, you're closing in terms of transferring them to an actual in-person date, anywhere from 4 to 10%. Now, in terms of the weekly match, I guess you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, just to give you guys some input here, what Austin and I consider to be really successful profiles that are performing well are profiles that across the board are getting anywhere from 25 to 50 matches across multiple dating apps. So let's just kind of set that framework there so you guys understand what is winning numbers in terms of performance. It's 25 to 50. That is a top echelon of what men who are doing well are obtaining across the board. And that's per week. So if out of those 50 matches, if there is a match to close rate of 10% out of those 50 matches, that means you're going on 5 dates a week. And now the question is, what does it actually take to be able to get 50 matches? Now we're gonna just talk about worst case scenario here, right? This is a guy who's swiping all throughout the week, Monday through Friday. He's swiping maybe 10 minutes a day and 50 times on a specific dating app. Let's just call it Hinge, right? So he swipes Monday 50 times, Tuesday 50 times. He keeps doing that all the way until Friday. How many times has he swiped? 250 times, right? So what we came up with is that if a successful man is getting anywhere from 20 to 50 matches a week, then that means that 20% of 250 is 50 matches. So 20% of the matches of 250 is gonna translate to 50 matches, which then can be converted into approximately 5 dates a week.
So, I just, guys see here, we really looked into the numbers and data. Most of you guys aren't gonna be doing it that systematically, but that's what we have to do because we need to understand what is that threshold of good. And we both truly believe that any guy could reach that point with the right mechanisms we're gonna talk about within this video. So when it comes to dating apps and the presentation aspect, obviously image is everything. Your image matters so much because you are the product that you're selling, and the dating apps itself, or even social media, those are the ads. You're running ads to your product, which is you trying to attract the customer, which is women. So there's 3 pillars of presentation. Most of you guys already understand the first one, which is simply pictures, but also a part of dating apps, you have your prompts, which are more so used to help start conversation and showcase a little bit more personality about yourself. Then also the bio. Every app or social media platform has some sort of bio where you just give a quicker description of yourself. And truth be told, not only do guys mess up the pictures, but they also usually mess up the other pillars of presentation. And so that's also what we're gonna dive into today. You got anything to touch on that or?
No, absolutely. I was gonna say this all very translates very much to marketing. So what is a good marketing creative ad touch on, right? It's engaging, it catches attention, and it retains like attention, right? And it also incites some kind of action. So you guys need to keep that in mind when you're creating your profiles, because I think we find this very often with our students, or just like men in general, is like they think that these profiles are like a place where they can showcase like who they are inside, and like where this is very much more of like a marketing strategy so that you can put yourself in a position where you are receiving a lot more engagement. And then once you do receive that engagement, then you can go ahead and set up a date. Then you can get to know the girl, and then you can actually show more of who you are on the inside.
Exactly. We're casting out that wide net to attract as many fish as possible.
There you go.
And then we're crafting ourselves into that attractive bait. And stay tuned, because we are going to get into some prompts and bio measures and discuss more about that. What actually happens once you have the successful profile? Well, you get to do the thing you wanted to do in the first place, which is go on more dates.
Yep.
Find a girlfriend, build a rotation, have more casual dating experiences, whatever you want to do. And truth is, we work with guys who are kind of across the spectrum. Some guys want wives and relationships. Some guys just want a more female experience. And other guys just want to just optimize. Like, they're already doing decent. They just want to do even better, reach that top tier echelon. In terms of the things that we have noticed in full, it's going to be based on these few aspects, because we already talked about the pillars of presentation. So up next, these aspects fall within that. And up first, we got just pure effort and curation for your image specifically, then also crafting what we call universal appeal, and then attracting genuine desire. And we're going to talk about all those aspects within this and the mechanisms involved to actually accomplish that goal. All right, so the first thing that we have seen across many successful profiles is just from the sole fact that they live in a great city, a major hub of some sort of city. I think even if you were 10 out of 10, maxed out everything, and I placed you in a small town somewhere, random, I always say Ohio. Like, Ohio's like the first
Or Ohio.
state that comes to my mind that's random, or Nebraska or somewhere, or Montana, you know, is what it is. But that's with any dating strategy though. You try to cold approach, you try to do anything, like, you're just not going to get the results. So I found that you want to be in a city with at least 250,000 people. Just that alone puts more of the numbers in your favor. And if you go to a major city, like we're in Miami right now, with 500,000 to millions of people, like, now the law of averages is just even more in your favor.
Yeah.
There's just more of a density of women who are single and available.
100%. I mean, it becomes a numbers game, and like, statistically speaking, you're just going to perform so much better than putting yourself in a position where there's not much to choose from, right? Or to like be able to go out with, and then we're not even taking into account any kind of preferences that women in that general population might have.
That's
right?
fair.
So when you go to major cities like Miami, like New York, like LA, there's so much diversity that there is something for everyone.
Yeah, and some guys might ask, you know, well, should I move? Like, what's the solution here? I mean, if your job or career places you in an environment where you're not really that mobile, then I would at least try to expand your radius to the next major city. So usually apps, it would start off at anywhere from 25 to 30 miles, maybe expand it to 40, 50 if the nearest city is that distance away, because once again, just more numbers equals better results.
Yeah.
So,
and I would also add that this shouldn't be like a cop-out for guys who like live in very remote areas to say like, oh, I can't do well, because now more than ever, you're gonna have to pay even better attention to like your actual presentation, you know, because like here, yeah, you might be able to get away with certain things, right? Just because of the amount of individuals that are in this area, like let's just say Miami, right? But if you're in a very low populated area, then more than ever, you're gonna have to stand out or like put yourself in positions like either through augmenting like the radius so you can put yourself and be seen by more individuals, right? So it's not a cop-out, guys. Like, you being in a remote area where there's smaller populations doesn't mean that it's impossible for you to date or to not get results. It just means that you have to work even harder, which should be something that's motivating for you as men.
absolutely. And truth be told, with dating, especially if you want a girlfriend or a wife, like, you just have to win one time.
Yeah.
One time. Just keep that in mind, guys, especially if you are in smaller cities. Now, up next, we've noticed across the most successful profiles, pre-planning. They put high intention and curation and effort into the profile. And to be honest, most of the guys we work with, they come in, I usually do like an audit of what they're sort of working with now. And it literally looked like they set it up in 5 minutes. Even myself, I remember when I first got on dating apps, I took whatever's in my camera roll that I took pictures, 6 months ago, a year ago, and then I was missing one. I went in the bathroom real quick, took a selfie, and then expected results. And then I was surprised when nothing happened. And I didn't even realize that you're supposed to put effort and curation into it.
The biggest one that I hear personally as like a dating photographer is like, is the professional photography going to be a turnoff? But what guys don't understand is that the original pioneers of like photo curation and putting themselves on Instagram and like presenting themselves well on dating apps are women. Like, I want you to think about the 10 out of 10 women that you do see on dating profiles. Take a closer look at their photos. Like, take a good look at the quality, how high quality it is. Take a look at the angles, how they're posing. Like, they're masters at this. And it's just us men that are starting to find this out for ourselves. And obviously it's going to be like awkward. Obviously we're going to like overthink it because it's something different, right? When something's different, then we see it like as the odd thing out, and it's just kind of uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
But women have been doing this for a very long time now.
That's true. And what we're trying to do is level the playing field, right? Like
100%.
we said, women have been doing this forever. They know how to pose. They take hundreds of pictures. They have makeup on. Then they edit a filter on the makeup. And then they pick the best angle, and then they do more editing, and then they curate the perfect profile and Instagram account. So us guys, we're just playing catch up, right? And some guys might even say, well, is it feminine to put in effort with your looks, or even go to the degree of effort needed to, I guess, do well? But my question is, how bad do you want the results?
100%.
You know, I don't think it's feminine at all to try.
No, not at all.
No.
And I think trying like on dating apps and presenting yourself well should be also a reflection of the way that you're showing up in like real life. One of your sayings is like, opportunities present themselves to those who present themselves. And that's very much true. Like, unfortunately, we live in like a very vain society where like looks matter, where first impressions matter. So if the way that you're presenting yourself out in public is not ideal, and you're getting doors like, you know, shut right in front of your face, then like the same thing is going to happen across like the digital world, which is, you know, every day we're moving more and more in that direction, right?
Yeah.
So it is very crucial to like understand that it is not feminine. It is just you putting your best self out there and putting the best foot forward for yourself, so that you can have more opportunities, whether that's dating or whether that's in business or just like networking or whatever it is.
Yeah. And let's be real, like, I've never had a woman say it's girly or feminine for me in terms of my app setup or Instagram, like, ever. More so, they're intrigued. They ask, you know, are you a model? Not just with me, but people you work with also, in terms of the photography aspect. And I find I want to do anything that gives me leverage amongst average men. Average men have the mindset of, this is feminine, this is gay, I don't have to put in the effort, like, why do I have to do this? I'm like, okay, you stay over there. Us top 10%ers, we're actually going on dates, getting matches. We do what it takes to set ourselves apart.
Yeah, like, you want to be the best man that you can be, then you have to do like what is necessary to be the best, right? Not just settle for mediocrity. And like, we're just moving in that direction. And if you are not doing that, you're honestly just falling behind.
Now, in terms of what they're actually pre-planning, let's touch on that a little bit. So up first, the style, like what they're gonna wear. This sometimes includes doing a whole wardrobe audit and revamp those old shirts, or you haven't gone shopping in 2, 3, 4 years wearing those old Skechers, whatever it may be. Like, the outfits have to be curated, fit you well, and showcase some sort of sex appeal or whatever leverage you personally have.
Absolutely.
If you have muscular physique or maybe some tattoos, then maybe you want to show that off. Also, the outfits correlating or matching with the environment that you're in. Yeah, like if I'm at the beach, I'm not going to wear like a suit.
Exactly.
You know, I'm going to wear something that fits within that environment. So that goes into the pre-planning aspect.
It needs to be contextual, right? Like Austin was saying, you're not going to show up to the beach with a suit, and you're not going to show up to a wedding with flip-flops.
Yeah.
Like, you need to understand that context matters. And on the topic of outfits, I'm going to just give the guys a little bit of game because I think it's important. But guys, like, if your profile is a resume of your life and you're showcasing yourself in the most attractive way possible, it is undeniable that you need to be showcasing different aspects of your life. So for example, you need to have casual outfits. You need to have some kind of smart wear, some kind of like actual dressier, maybe a suit outfit, you know? If like your age makes sense, like for you to be wearing that, you know, like I'm not gonna have a 19-year-old in a suit, right?
Yeah, fair.
Like that doesn't make sense, right? But if you're like 27, you're like 30 something, like having a suit, having like a smart wear outfit, having like a casual fit makes sense, because women, again, basically trying to see if you qualify as like a potential date for them, right? So they want to see like, what does this guy look like if I take him to a wedding? What does this guy look like if I go with him on a romantic date or just like a casual night out or whatever it is? they need to see different parts of yourself in different situations. And that's why that matters too.
Now, I'll mention this too. There's two ways to do it. Obviously, the curated route, which we're talking about, the pre-planning aspect. You plan the locations, the outfits, everything's planned. But also, you can do it the more spontaneous way based on capturing elements of you already doing the stuff you would have already done anyway. Just capturing you in that moment. So whenever you go to the restaurant, asking the friend across the table or the maybe woman you're with to take a picture of you with the flash on. You know, you should actually capture more of your moments alongside with the curation. That's what I do. That's how I optimize. Absolutely. I plan, but also I capture whenever needed.
Yeah.
And then because of that, you have this element of like curated professional, but also like authentic, but still like super nice. And it kind of blends together.
And that's important, right? And that's also granted that people or these men are living social lives as well. So if you're not doing that for yourself right now, put yourself out there and start having those experiences, because it's at the end of the day, it's only going to be good for you. It's only going to help you. But for guys who are already doing that, be intentional and like actually capture those moments.
Yeah. So up next, I want to talk more about the universal aspect, appealing more so to majority of women and not to a small selection of women. And we find that the most successful profiles usually don't have really niched sort of looks. Now, keep in mind, like yourself, you could be a niche, like because I'm a black man, because you're Latino, you might be a niche already, but you don't want to further niche yourself down into a element to where maybe 1 in 10 women that comes across your profile will like you. Whereas if you kind of showcase a more universally attractive image, 6 or 5 out of 10 might find that attractive, right? So elements of really niche looks, we can talk about like archetypes, I guess. So like, for example, let's say you're a cowboy, you live in Texas, you wear the 10-gallon hats, you like to rope swing, and should we present every single picture like that of you in a cowboy hat and boots and on horses and cows? I don't think so. Right? I think we should craft a more universal approach by wearing elements that are deemed universally attractive. Polos, you know, nice jeans, trousers, even suits if you're in the age range. You know, I think it's okay to add maybe 1 or 2 like niche related things, but I don't think a guy should lean completely into a super niche. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think it's all about mass appeal. Again, this is a whole marketing endeavor that we're taking on right now, right? So with marketing, you want to appeal. Obviously, you have like an ideal demographic of women that you would like to attract, right? Good-looking women, quality women. But in order to get there, you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot and funnel yourself too much to where you're missing out on certain opportunities. So I would say you want to have a mass appeal as much as possible and then gauge performance at that point. If there is a specific type of woman that you want to attract, you already have base value for performing well. So now you can maybe add an additional cowboy hat. Now you can do like an additional thing that will help kind of funnel and fine tune that so you can get more of that specific result that you're looking for. But for the grand majority of you guys, we first need to get you up here, right? Which is like mass appeal, more matches.
One thing I'll say too with the niching down is I think due to like popular media or some articles or whatever, but the hobby pictures, right? Showing yourself swimming or rock climbing, and it's like 3 to 4 pictures of it. I'm like, women, that doesn't turn women on. Like, unless you're trying to find a woman who's also into rock climbing, which is very rare, then you should not lead with hobbyist pictures or have more than one, assuming that everything else is optimized on the profile in itself. And I think that's another layer of niching down that guys don't even realize. Like all these hobby pictures, you doing this, doing that. Like from a dating context, remember, we're selling you as a product and leading with yourself as an image. The hobby pictures can be like a benefit, but it shouldn't be the priority.
Exactly. Yep. It's like the cherry on top. And one thing I'll tell guys too that I speak to is that your photos in general should be photos that are attractive, but that also give the perception to women as like, oh, this is someone that I could potentially kiss, right? Because at the end of the day, this is like a dating app, right? It's not like a hobby app. You're not trying to see if this is going to be your rock climbing buddy. Like for women and for yourself, like you're vetting whether this is someone that you could potentially see yourself having a long-term relationship, short-term relationship, and like potentially like having an intimate relationship as well.
Exactly. Up next, I want to talk about the aspects of retouching and editing. Also, this is something that women have done for ages and still continually do today. I'm not sure if you ever met a woman from online, see them in person, and notice how they're a little less attractive. That's because they retouch and edit their pictures. But guys, they'll just upload the raw file, no sort of retouch, no set of color enhancement whatsoever. Just boom, take the picture, upload. And so we've also have found, and you actually do this within your service too, whenever you retouch and edit tastefully to where you look like the most photogenic version of yourself, not a catfish, the best photogenic version of yourself, that can amplify appeal and give you more leverage amongst other men. We have a few ways we do this. It's 2 different layers, editing and retouching. Editing is simply just editing colors or maybe removing something from the background, versus retouching, some people might think of it like a filter, but it's removing the flaws about yourself that may not paint you in the best light. So for example, if you have acne or a big blemish, we'll remove that blemish. Or if your teeth are like kind of yellow, which they shouldn't be, but we'll whiten your teeth a little bit. So what have you noticed with retouching and editing?
No, I would say that you're spot on with that, but retouching needs to be tasteful, right? Like it needs to be minimal, right? It's not like, let's completely transform your face to someone that you're not. Like, it's not about like, let me make your forehead smaller, or like, let me make your like bicep 3 times the size. Like, it's tastefully cleaning up certain areas that maybe at that moment, it wasn't the best moment for you to take a photo. Like you said, maybe you have like a zit right here and you need to get rid of that. Or maybe, I don't know, you were eating something and then you had like something on your tooth. You got to take that off. You got to clean it up. Or maybe you have a really good camera and maybe like your pores are just like very present. So you just kind of soften up the skin a little bit. And the reality is that this happens all across social media. Even like magazine covers, like whenever you see stuff on like Vogue or like big billboards, like retouching is happening consistently and it looks natural, it looks tasteful, right? And that's the most important thing. It's not about changing your entire being. It's about just making little fine-tune adjustments to just present the best and cleanest version of yourself.
I believe you should look anywhere from 1 to 2 points more attractive on the image, maybe versus in real life. Not to the point where you're catfish, but like the online version of you should be like, damn, like I look good. Like that's what you should say when you look at the picture. A lot of guys don't come in and say, when I go on dates, women tell me that I look better in real life. And I'm like, that's a red flag. Like, sure, that's a solid surprise, but that tells me that you don't take good pictures. Or that maybe you don't retouch, you don't edit, and you don't really put effort into the online sort of look. So,
and you're not showcasing like the best possible version of yourself. So you could also just be missing out on opportunities to date like more attractive women.
I've never had a woman ever say that I look catfish in person, ever.
No.
And the fact they're like, damn, you look just like your pictures.
What's actually really funny, and maybe you've experienced this too, is like the fact that some women will say like, oh, are you like AI, or are you like fake, or is this like a scam? The reason guys are getting this is because it's just now that men are actually putting effort into their presentation, into their photos. Women are not used to that. Women are the ones that have been doing this for a really long time. So anything that's outside of like what the women perceive to be the norm is going to raise like, oh crap, like,
and the norm is the 10 other guys she swiped on before she got to yours. Crap, shit, ill, gross. Is he AI? That's exactly what happens.
But here's the thing, it's like, I much rather be told, hey, I look like AI, or hey, are you fake? And get the match and get the date, because again, we're leading by actions, not like words, right? I much rather see an action of like a match and a potential date than like nothing at all.
And some guys might think that this is very difficult to do. I have to be a Photoshop expert, but they actually make plenty of apps nowadays to make it very easy. Tell you a few of them. For one, Face app, and then also Facetune. Love Facetune. Now, one very, very common thing we have found amongst successful profiles is that they all work with us. Because every guy that comes in, one, they're gonna get an audit on their current profiles, how they can fix it. We also do a full style revamp, and then working with Felipe, he captures you in the most attractive way possible, getting that photography on point, and then hand selecting the best ones to implement on the profile, and then of course implementing the texting and all that other stuff. So if you are a guy watching at this point right now, that tells me you're somebody who definitely cares about your online image and potentially wants to do better. So I encourage you to click the link down below, book a free call to see how we can help you out. All right, let's get back to the prompts and bio, which are the number 2 and number 3 pillars of presentation besides the pictures. One thing we've noticed across successful profiles is that, for one, they more so evoke a positive emotional response through the prompts. Most guys are gonna be insanely logical. Here's what I do, here's what I did, here's what I like. It's always about them. Versus a more emotion-evoking prompt triggers curiosity, intrigue, or even makes a woman laugh whenever she sees it, which almost forces her to reply. Like she sees it and she's like, I had to reply to this. 100%. And so what have you personally noticed with prompts too?
Well, obviously what you're saying is true, right? You want to get have women responding to your prompts as much as possible because it shows more interest. But one thing that actually came to mind as you were talking and discussing all this is that a lot of guys believe that it's just the photos that are going to make the difference. Like if they finally realize oh, the photos are what's going to make the difference. Well, photos and everything that leads up to the photos is 75%. And then the other 25% is the actual profile optimization, right? Because the truth is if you don't hone in on the profile optimization, you don't get that right bio, you don't get the prompts right, and you don't have the right settings or showcase what you should be showcasing, or you're saying too much. What's going to end up happening is that you're actually going to, again, shoot yourself in the foot, and you're going to end up disqualifying yourself for saying things that you shouldn't otherwise have said or saying too much. So yes, the prompts, if done, can work beautifully for you. You're going to have women reaching out to you, and they're going to set you on a positive route to more success on dating apps. But if you keep doing whatever you've been doing and you're putting these super logical prompts or putting overly cheesy things in your bio, you're just gonna end up disqualifying yourself even though you might have great photos of yourself.
Especially with the bio, right? A lot of guys think they should treat it like an autobiography. Here's what I did 10 years ago. I have 2-3 kids. I do this, I do that. I love this, I love that.
Yeah.
And it's logically you might think that should be the right approach, but we personally have found that it's just not. Short, sweet, demonstrate higher value through nouns, not adjectives, nouns. Nouns, yeah, through nouns. And then once you do all that, you'll find that if you have the pictures plus the prompts plus the bio, now this is pushing you from that top 10% with just the pictures to now the top 1% of all profiles.
It's all about being the most intriguing and at the same time keeping the most amount of mystery possible. So you guys have heard us rant for a little bit now. And one other thing that's important here, because I know there's a bunch of you who are saying, well, this seems like a lot of work, this seems like a lot of effort that needs to go into this. You know what, screw it. I'm just gonna go cold approach. It's a lot easier. I'll just go out a Friday night and just talk to some women and go on some dates. Well, let me share with you some statistics here, because my background is also as an engineer. Austin is big on numbers as well. What was your background when you went to school?
Computer science.
Computer science, so we're big with numbers and statistics. And what we came to realize is that, for example, with online matches, if you get 50 matches and you have a 10% close rate from match to date, that's 5 dates per week. If you do 50 cold approaches, and this average actually came from research where it says that a 2% close rate is what's typically considered average in terms of cold approaching. So out of 50 cold approaches, 2% close rate is 1 date a week. Already off the bat, that's a very, very big difference. Online dating, 5 dates per week. In person, 1 date per week. And let's just add a little bit more to that as well. So let's just say 5 days out of the week for online dating, you swipe 50 times for 10 minutes. So Monday, you swipe for 10 minutes, 50 times, right? Tuesday, you do the same thing, and you do all that from Monday through Friday. That is a total of 250 swipes. And what we said earlier is that a 20% match rate is actually really, really good. And that will lead you to 50 matches. So in the span of 50 minutes, because again, Monday through Friday, swiping 50 times, and you're spending 10 minutes, that is 50 matches at a match rate of 20%, and you've only invested 50 minutes of your time. Now let's compare that to in-person cold approach. So 5 days of cold approaching, right? Monday through Friday, approximately 1 hour, and 1 hour of cold approaching, you'll probably talk to 5 women, realistically speaking, as you're walking from one to the next. And that in the span of 5 days, so 5 women per day for 5 days, that's 25 approaches. With a close rate of 2%, that doesn't even equate to 1 date. That's 0.5.
Yeah. Anybody who has cold approached any amount of time usually comes to the conclusion of how big of a waste of time it is. Not to mention, if you are somebody who is busy with your career, your job, even school in some cases, the last thing you want to do is go outside and talk to women on the means of romantic interest. I'm not talking about just casual talking, but in terms of getting her number, getting her Instagram, establishing rapport, attraction, all that stuff, you know? So I believe that's why online dating in itself has also gotten so popular, is because yes, it is a passive way to meet women, but also, for one, the women themselves are on online dating. They're not going outside expecting to be approached. But two, if you input the right things with the 3 pillars of presentation that we talked about and actually put an effort and curation into the profile, you now have something that literally guarantees results. Whereas cold approach is always up in the air. You don't know if they're single. You don't know their level of attraction for you. A lot of numbers go nowhere. And I think somebody who has done a cold approach myself, you know, I just had to optimize what gave me the most leverage, and it was simply just learning all these things that we talked about today. I think cold approach is more optimized for teenagers and people just starting to discover like the dating game and getting over like social anxiety and like things like that. But once you've been through that phase and you're like in your late 20s, early 30s, late 30s, like you're not gonna say, okay, time to go to the grocery store and approach 10 women, you know, or time to go out to the club and see who I can pull home tonight.
Yeah, let me go to Target for 2 hours and let me just approach like a bunch of single moms. I don't know.
I did that before and I felt like a predator. I'm not gonna lie. Like mentally, I felt like a predator. Like, I did not like it whatsoever. But those are the things that we notice in terms of successful profiles. Once again, if you want to work with us so that we can revamp your online presence and actually start getting real dates from online dating, leveraging Instagram and also dating apps, click the link down below to schedule a free call. We'll go over your current setup right now, your current strategy, and see where your flaws are at, and also see how we can personally help you out. And I'm gonna leave a link to Felipe at Felipe Sayer.
At Felipe Sayer, that's my personal, or like my photography one is F Sayer Photo.
Gotcha. See you guys in the next one. Peace.